Alrighty, guys. We're gonna start class today. Is everybody ready to start?
Yes.
Alrighty. So, everybody get in your seats and we're gonna ask you a question really quick. So, I have a really important question. How did you guys travel to school today? So, can you guys take a quick second and talk to your partner next to you and just tell them how you got to school? And then I will ask you guys to raise your hands and tell me how you got to school, alright? Go ahead and do that.
My mom drove me to school.
Oh, I rode the bus.
You like your bus driver?
I guess.
Alrighty, sounds like we had good conversations. So how did you guys get to school today? I'm going to call on, anybody want to raise their hand? Anybody? Ooh, let's do Birdie.
Yeah, so I just rode the bus.
You rode the bus, awesome. Alright, anybody else want to raise their hands? Let's do Donnie.
I got here in my mom's car.
Alright, sounds good. Can anybody else raise their hand if they took the bus today? Anybody? Sounds like a few people did. Anybody else take a car today? A few more people took a car. Anybody ride a bike today or walk? Anybody do any of that? Alright, rest of the class looks like you guys all did something to get to school today. I have another question for you guys. Did any of you guys use the Underground Railroad to get to school today?
No.
What? You guys haven't? Well, I have another question for you guys. So, does anybody know what the Underground Railroad is? I'm gonna ask you guys to do a think, pair, share. Think about it for a second, and then pair up with your partner, and then share it with your partner. And then in a little bit, after I'm done writing on the board, I will ask you guys to share it with me, alright? Alright, go ahead and do that.
What do you think?
I think slaves use it to escape. What about you?
Maybe it was a train that was underground.
That's really good. Good guess.
Alright, it sounds like you guys had good conversations over there. So, I'm gonna call on someone. Does anybody want to raise their hand? Francesca, what do you think it is?
I think that maybe it was a train that ran underground.
That was a pretty good guess, but not quite. Anybody else want to tell me what you think it is? How about Nick?
Didn't slaves use it to escape?
That is excellent. That is true. So I'm going to give you a quick explanation of what the Underground Railroad is. So the Underground Railroad was a network of secret routes and safe houses made in the U.S. in the early to mid-19th century, and it was used by African American slaves to escape to freedom from their masters. The most famous slave to use the Underground Railroad and guide hundreds of other slaves to freedom was... Anybody know who it was?
Harriet Tubman!
Oh my gosh, you guys got it right! Yes, that is true. It was Harriet Tubman. So, moving on. Today we're going to read a book, and the book is called Harriet Tubman, Conductor on the Underground Railroad. We're only going to read a small section, but in the book we are reading today, does anybody know what POV it is in? Or anybody have a guess what it might be in? Young, can you tell me?
Is it Harriet Tubman's point of view?
No, it's not. So we're going to discuss about point of views real quick. So, a point of view is how the book is being told or how the story is being told. So there is first person point of view, second person point of view, and third person point of view. So, in a first person point of view, the speaker or writer's point of view is being told. So it's I, me, mine, we. So if I was telling a story like I am now, I am speaking. So I'm speaking in first person point of view. Second person point of view belongs to the person or people being addressed, and it's usually in a you form. So if I am talking and I say, you are doing this, you are eating a banana, you are peeling an orange, it is only in the form of you. So that is second person point of view. Third person point of view is it belongs to a person or people being talked about, and it usually is in she, he, them, they form. So I would say they went to the grocery store together. She went and picked flowers in the field. So every point of view, um, like that is third person, except for second person and first person, which are you and me. So, moving on, can you guys take out a writing utensil, a pen or a pencil, something like that, and a piece of paper to write on? And while we are reading, can you guys go ahead and write down things you might notice about the point of views that we just learned about, and write down in the book or in your notes about what you think the point of view is as we are reading. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and start reading. You guys can turn to page 139, and I'm going to read for a bit, and then in a little while, I'm going to ask you guys a question and stop reading. And I'm going to have someone read today, but I will get to that later. All right. Ready? So, this chapter is called Go On or Die. Harriet had found it hard to leave the warmth and friendliness too, but she urged them on. For a while as they walked, they seemed to carry in them a measure of contentment. Some of the serenity and the cleanliness of that big warm kitchen lingered on inside them. But as they walked further and further away from the warmth and the light, the cold and the darkness entered into them. They fell silent, sullen, and suspicious. She waited for the moment when some of them would turn mutinous. It did not happen that night. 2 nights later, she was aware that the feet behind her were moving slower and slower. She heard the irritability in their voices, knew that soon someone would refuse to go on. She started talking about William Still in the Philadelphia Vigilance Committee. No one commented. No one asked any questions. She told them the story of William and Ellen Craft and how they escaped from Georgia. Ellen was so fair that she looked as though she were white, and so she dressed up in a man's clothing and she looked like a wealthy young planter. Her husband, William, who was dark, played the role of her slave. Thus they traveled from Macon, Georgia, to Philadelphia, riding on the trains and staying in the finest hotels. Ellen pretended to be very ill. Her right arm was in a sling and her right hand was bandaged because she was supposed to have rheumatism. Thus she avoided having to sign the register at the hotels, for she could not read or write. They finally arrived safely in Philadelphia and then went to Boston. No one said anything. Not one of them seemed to have heard her. She told them that Frederick Douglass, the most famous of the escaped slaves, of his eloquence, of his magnificent appearance. Then she told them of her own first vain effort at running away, evoking the memory of that miserable life she had led as a child, reliving it for a moment in the telling. All right, so I'm going to stop and ask you guys a question. And really quick, I'm going to have someone read. Maria, can you read after we answer these questions? You're going to start on the next paragraph, and you will end at Master was dead, all right?
Okay.
All righty. So, I have a question. Based off of what we have read so far, can anybody tell me what they think the author's point of view is now? That we know what a point of view is and everything? I'm going to call on someone that I draw from our name bucket really quick. So I'm going to go through the name bucket and pull out a name. Looks like we pulled out Noah. Noah, do you have an answer to that question?
Is it third person point of view?
That is correct. All right, we're going to ask someone else, though, to see if they have another opinion. Let's go with, looks like I pulled out Kent. Kent, what is your answer?
So I heard she and they, so I think it's third person point of view.
Yes, that's awesome. It sounds like you guys are really getting the concept down. All right, Maria, are you ready to keep reading for us?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
But they had been tired too long, hungry too long, afraid too long, footsore too long. One of them suddenly cried out in despair, "Let me go back. It is better to be a slave than to suffer like this in order to be free." She carried a gun with her on these trips. She had never used it, except as a threat. Now as she aimed it, she experienced a feeling of guilt, remembering that time years ago when she had prayed for the death of Edward Brodess, the master, and then not too long afterwards had heard that great wailing cry that came from the throats of the field hands, and knew from the sound that the master was dead.
All right, thank you so much for reading for us, Maria. That was great. I'm going to keep going on, all right? Now end at the bottom of this page 141, okay? One of the runaways said, again, "Let me go back. Let me go back." stood still, and then turned around and said over his shoulder, "I'm going back." She lifted the gun, aimed it at the despairing slave. She said, "Go on with us or die." The husky, low-pitched voice was grim. He hesitated for a moment, and then he joined the others. They started walking again. She tried to explain to them why none of them could go back to the plantation. If a runaway returned, he would turn traitor. The master and the overseer would force him to turn traitor. The returned slave would disclose the stopping places, the hiding places, the corn stacks they had used, with the full knowledge of the owner of the farm, the name of the German farmer who had fed them and sheltered them. These people who had risked their own security to help runaways would be ruined, fined, and imprisoned. All right, I'm going to read actually just a little bit more. She said, "We go to get free or die, and the freedom's not bought with dust." This time she told them about the long agony of the Middle Passage on the old slave ships, about the black horror of the holds, about the chains and the whips. They too knew these stories. But she wanted to remind them of the long, hard way they had come, about the long, hard way that they had yet to go. She told them about Thomas Sims, the boy picked up on the streets of Boston and sent back to Georgia. She said when they got him back to Savannah, got him in prison there, they whipped him until a doctor who was standing by watching said, "You will kill him if you strike him again." His master said, "Let him die." Thus she forced them to go on. Sometimes she thought she had become nothing but a voice speaking in the darkness, cajoling, urging, and threatening. Sometimes she told them things to make them laugh. Sometimes she sang to them, and heard the 11 voices behind her blending softly with hers. And then she knew that for the moment all was well with them. All right, so we are done reading now. I'm going to explain next what we're going to do for the rest of the class. So we're going to use our books today, and you guys are going to do some research with the books. You guys are going to take pieces out of the book, write them down in your notes, discuss them with the groups that I'm going to put you in, and you guys are going to eventually write a paragraph about the point of view that you guys have found in our book today.